Hello and welcome. So today we'll be taking a look into agentic AI. So AI agents are becoming one of the most important, patterns that we're talking about in modern AI systems. In this video, we'll be diving into Strands Agent. So we'll just have a quick start. Yeah, this is not meant to dive deeper into all the features of Strands. In the next videos, we'll be diving deeper into that. So I just want to introduce you to Strands Agent, an open source software development kit that lets you build an AI agent in just a few lines of code in Python. I'll be using Python, but we also have TypeScript in that case. So we'll cover the core concept, how it works, and build our first agent together. Okay, so let me put it like this. And yep. Now, just before we dive into the agentic AI systems, let's try understand why or where generative AI failed. Yeah. So with the large language models, LLMs, with the applications built on that, we know the large language models are focused on, or generative AI is basically focused on creating new content. And majority of us have interacted with the likes of ChatGPT, Anthropic, and so on. And we see how it's amazing for us in terms of generating content. So we want to move from there whereby we can give, our models, our brains, the capability to use other tools. So where LLM apps failed, the large language model app, they have no tool use. A model can understand text, GPT can understand text, but if we think about our real world experiences, we need tools. Like in calculations, we need calculators, we need to access these APIs, we need to open, change some files, shells, and access different business systems, okay? And also with the large language models, there is no workflow. So if the task becomes more complex, tasks like this need, apart from reasoning and just giving us suggestions, we need a way to plan, we need a way to execute code, we need to check. And what if we fail? Maybe we search for a document, we don't get the information we get. Probably with the LLMs, it will go and hallucinate and just create some content for you. But we really want some sort of authenticity in what we want. And yeah, the reliability goes down in terms of large language models, and unless this app can track, the state and results. So I'm comparing this in terms of an analogy. The chatbot is like a consultant. So you ask questions and you get back answers. But with the agent, if you're building an agent is able to take actions. Apart from just giving you answers, it's able to take actions, figure out a workaround with it, and give you a final result. So when I say agentic AI, I want you to think of a goal-driven software in this case. So it's not just about speaking, it reasons about the task that you have given it, chooses the actions, uses the tools that are available, and adjust. The adaptation is one thing that is very important based on the result that it gets. Maybe it goes to fetch a certain page, does not find it, adjust and figure out another way to go about it. So a chatbot is like a consultant. It will give you advice, but the agent will get your work done. It still uses the large language model, it uses the brain, but we are adding hands onto this brain of ours so that it can perform actions on our behalf. So now, I said we're talking about strands. So Strands Agents, what is it about? And this is the tool that I'm going to focus on today and also in the upcoming videos. And the most useful way to explain it is it's just an open source software development kit that gives developers a way to build these agentic applications. So these are just some of the features. It's an easy start. You create a working agent quickly, and we'll see how we do that without building the orchestration layer of it. So we have all these tools that are available for us. We have building tools, the hands that we can attach to our Python functions to perform the real actions. You choose the model you want. By default, it uses the Bedrock as the model provider. And Bedrock is an AWS service that gives us access to multiple foundational models from multiple providers, okay? But it also supports other model providers. You're not tied to AWS Bedrock. And in terms of debugging, more features on capturing traces, metrics, so that, we can iterate on it. So SDK, when I talk about the SDK, an open source SDK, so what is an SDK about? Basically, you can think of it as a couple of things. So we have this toolbox that is available for us. We also have instructions on how to use the toolbox, and the toolbox comes with ready-made parts. Think of it like, if you want to build a house, you'll probably need some tools. So the hammers, and all these other tools. I have never built a house, okay? But also for the people who use Legos, so the Lego bricks, they are already made parts that you can use to build the whole house instead of starting from scratch. So an SDK helps us with not having to manufacture every piece, of our software by ourselves. So we are just assembling multiple pieces together to build our ready made up. So some of the features, we have access to a model, the brain. We can use whatever model we want, GPT models, among others. Just mentioning GPT because that's familiar. But yeah, I love Anthropic Cloud, so we can use all those. We have tool integrations. You can integrate with other tools. So by tool, tools could be files, software, any API call. You could be interacting with other applications as well, the likes of Slack, so on. Yeah. And then the agent loop, which we'll discuss further in the next video. We'll figure out how to reason and how to execute the tasks. So now how Strands works. So you can see we send in a prompt. Oh, I want you to get me the weather forecast for today, okay? So the agent is going to use a model to reason. So it will figure out, okay, they want to get the weather forecast for today. So what should I do next? Maybe I should go check this website, blah, blah, blah. And that is where the tools comes in. So given the tools which have been given to this agent, it will check, do I really have the tools? Do I have the capabilities to figure out what is the weather? And it will figure out a way to find that information. And finally, you get back the result. So what makes it agentic AI is basically the concept of tools. Otherwise, we can use the model alone, but that agent is just, a vanilla boilerplate whereby you could just use the model itself and get an answer. So the agentic AI comes in with the capabilities to use different tools and perform actions instead of just giving us results. So with regards to installing the Strands SDK, very simple. We need, a clean virtual environment. So you need Python to get started with it. So you can create your own virtual environment. For that, you can see the code over there. And one thing is credentials. So by default, the Strands uses Bedrock as the model where we get a foundational model, and we use Cloud4 Sonnet by default. But you can integrate with other models as well, which I'll show you about that. So if you're using the default model provider, that means that you'd have to configure your AWS credentials. And yeah, so the file, so you have to install Strands Agent, SDK, and also if you're going to interact with tools, which really is what we need for our agents, you're going to have the Strands Agent tool. So it's very minimal setup. You can see the code. So from Strands, import the agent, you define the agent, you can give it some set of instructions on what the agent does. And yeah, you can get the result by giving it a prompt on what you want back. So you instantiate an agent, send a prompt, and get a response. So, but this by itself just feels like a fancier way, a fancy assistant, yeah? The real power shows up when I give the agent tools to, perform actions on my behalf. And here is an example. So here now we import the agent and also the tool. And then we can import some of the tools we need. In this case, you can see some built-in tools, like we import the calculator, we import tools like the current time. And you can also define your own custom tools. As I mentioned, this is just an introduction overview. When we dive deeper, we'll take a look at some of these tools, how you can create your own custom tools if there are no inbuilt tools available. So the custom tools here is a letter counter. You can build your own customized Python logic on that. And then you call on the agent and get the result. So as I mentioned, the large language model is the brain. So it still needs that, but the tools are the hands that give it access. So let's take a look at some, simple code with a quick start guide for Strands Agent. We know what Strands Agent is. For the prerequisites, you need Python 3.10 or later, an AWS account with appropriate permissions if you're going to use the default model provider. But if you're going with other model of your choice, this is not needed. And for me, I'm using Python programming. Strands supports Python and TypeScript. You can use either of them. So you can see the first command over here, pip install the Strands agent and the Strands agent tools. The installation happens, and then the first agent over here is just a simple vanilla agent whereby you create an agent and the agent is going to invoke a large language model on the background, default Cloud Sonnet 4, as I have mentioned, and get a response, give you back. But again, we could just go ahead and query the agent itself, right? So over here, you can see from Strands import agent, the code, we can define the model. So here we define Cloud Sonnet model, and you can specify the model ID. Now, if you want to use any other model, you can specify that as well. System prompt, very important. Now you have to give it information. So as an agent, what do you do? So in this case, you're just saying you're a helpful assistant, blah, blah, blah. I also have another code over here. You can see the agent prompt. You're a game master for D&D game. So it could be anything. And of course, using prompt engineering techniques, you can figure out which is the best, prompt to give it to handle your specific task. So you need that system prompt, and then you can get a response once you query that. Of course, tools are what make AI, agentic AI. So you can see in this case, we not only give it, it does not only have access to the model for reasoning, but also it has access to some tools to perform the task. For example, if someone asked about the weather, use this tool, get weather, to give them information back. If they ask about a calculation task, use the calculator to perform that. So now in this code, you can see we are importing the tool as well. And here we are using the built-in tool, the calculator tool. So we said import the calculator. There are a couple of built-in tools that are available in Strands. Let me get this. So you can see, okay. Yeah. Okay, so for RAG, if you want retrieval augmented, whatever. And memory, we can have that as well. File operations, the shell, code interpretation, web and network. You want to make API calls to the web and so on. We have Slack integration, browser, multimodal. We'll discuss about that. And also, if you want to interact with AWS services, we have that. Some utilities like the one I was talking about, calculator current time. There are some for agents and workflows, and a lot of those are some of the built-in tools. But if none is available, you can also create your own custom tool as well. For example, here we just defined a weather tool which returns sunny, just basic. And if someone asks what is the weather today, you should tell them that, and you can see the system prompt. You are a helpful assistant. You do simple math calculation and also tell the weather. And these are the tools that are available for you. If someone asks about the weather, use the weather tool. If someone asks a maths question, then use the calculator tool. You can also invoke these tools directly, especially in terms of debugging. You want to understand, how the tool works. You can invoke that directly as well. So here you can see we are using the tool method followed by the name of the tool. and then you perform whatever mathematics you want over there. Sines and cosines. My maths knowledge is off the drain. In terms of logging, we'll go deeper into observability, but then the Strands agent uses these Python standards logging to just collect information. So just from the documentation as well, we can see some of you can configure logging. And as I mentioned, we have Python and TypeScript. And you can see some of the log levels, for example, debugging, for troubleshooting, info, just general informational messages, warning, error, critical. So you can define the log level that you want. And this is the code, login.getLogger, set level. And then here it could be debug, warning, whatever you want, and then the format of the logs. So you can see over here, like from the response, the level name, debug, and this was related to Bedrock. Here we're configuring the model as well as the region in terms of AWS. And we can see it getting information. So tools, none of the tools were discovered. Of course, from this code, it's also just it's just saying hello, and it will say hello back or something. We have not defined any tools yet, but if there were any tools discovered, they were going to be mentioned here as well. And you can see the response, hello, how can I help you today? In terms of the model provider, talked about that. You can define any different model as well. So you are not tied to Bedrock. In the next code, you can see one where I configured the Llama model. Let me see if I can open this. Yeah, so let me just take a look at the code, but we'll dive deeper into this later on. So, okay. So here we're defining some tools, but we'll talk about that. But here is where you specify the model. So we're using this, the model ID is this, and some different settings we set up when configuring our models as well are over here. But that is a story for another day. Okay. Yeah. So you can specify your model provider. And here we just have this sample example to build an agent that can, search the web. So it has the web search tool, which is able to, access the DuckDuckGo search tool. So that is the tool it has access to, and also the large language model for reasoning tasks. So for the configuration, so of course we need to install the required packages. So this is for the DuckDuckGo and so on. We define the tool. So the tool is called web search and so on. These are the arguments needed over there. So the search query keywords, regions, maximum number of results to return. And so that was just defining the tool. And now we come ahead and specify our agent. So this is the recipe agent. Model is using this. The system prompt, you are a recipe bot, helpful cooking assistant, we can ask you information about recipes and so on. So the system prompt is very important, especially to make sure the the agent does not hallucinate. So it knows exactly what it has to do. So the tools that the recipe agent has access to is the web search tool. And now here we give a prompt. So the prompt is suggest a recipe for chicken and broccoli, and print back the response. And here was the response that came in with it. So that is basically it on Strands Agent for a quick start guide. So later on, of course, it has more capabilities that will be diving deeper into in terms of tools, building tools, custom tools, AWS integrations, in terms of model providers. How do you set up your own model provider? We know we use Bedrock by default. In terms of streaming and debugging, how does it handle that? How do we inspect our traces, our metrics in terms of observability? So these are just some of the other capabilities. How do you connect to external systems using the MCP servers and so on? So we'll dive deeper into that.